Hey designers, welcome back to the channel. We're going to be diving deep diving into how I've made this illustration. So without further ado, let's run the epic video now. That was an epic video. So today what we're going to be doing is I'm going to show you my working process on how I did the image. Instead of doing a 12-hour long video, because that's how long this design took, I'm going to be showing you the elements that I do to create this image. So what is my workflow and how do I make these shapes, these extra details, this advanced look. But it looks advanced, but it's very simple, and it's a very simple process to follow, I hope. If not, just rewind it, go back, learn about it, pick it up. I'll try and do it at a nice pace and explain it as best as I can, but I'll also show you some practices to do as well that I do, but what I show you is the bedrock of everything that I generally do. So you can take these skills, put those into your practice, and it'd be great to see what work you churn out after this video. So without further ado, let's get over to the computer. Right then, mouse. That's the keyboard, mouse. We're ready. Let's hop into it. Right, everything starts off with an illustration. I came up with this idea. I used Procreate to sketch, and I sent that to the computer, and I imported that into Figma. And this was the original design that I came up with. I knew what I wanted in my head, but I could see it in my head, but I just needed to sketch it, to visually see it and see the composition of it. So this is the sketch. This is where the design has come from. Why this? Because I like mech. It's my kind of style, and I like intricate design work, as you know. So I just want to bring you to this. I did some pre-done assets for myself. These are not components, they are just shapes with a border radius and some textures on there. So we have a noisy image. We have a noisy texture, we have a striped texture, light background, we have a darker texture, we have a chip. We got some just pen tool with some lines which are auto layout. We've got some medium chips, small chips, resistors, chip on a chip with a hexagon, some line work, and some wavy waveform, maybe some like audio waveform. So this is just taking a chip, changing the color, cutting some shapes out, which on my previous videos I've talked about this, but I'll run through it again, because everything that you see in this illustration, that is the bedrock of all the metal plates that you see in this design. So I'll run you through my process, and hopefully that will be, you understand that process. I'll try and explain it as simple as I can, but if you know Figma, then you'll know where I'm coming from. If you don't, you'll probably watch it a few times and you'll understand it. It is simple to do. So yeah, just follow along. So we've got some washers, different colors. We've just got some inner shadow, we've got some highlight color, we've got a set of primary colors with a highlight color, we've got some noise, we've got some shadows with different heights, that's a bit lower, that's a bit taller, we've got one with diagonal lines in, we have two different looking metal, which kind of matching metal. I'm not trying to make it metal, I'm just illustrating that that is a texture of metal, or the look of metal. Got some dotted, don't know why I came up with that, but that's in there. We've got some other diagonal lines in there, some hex shapes, because hex is predominant shape in here. And we've got some pipe work. This is a cable, a concept for a cable. This is just a load of drop shadows, just to get the height. This is just a linear gradient cable with the look of that it has lighting on the side. So a bit lighter here, darker here, lighter, a bit darker, a bit darker, a bit darker. So it's normally got like a bit of edge lighting to a cable. And we've also got a texture on here. Now, these textures that you see, like this, well, so this, these diagonal textures, and yeah, these diagonal textures are from my free texture pack on my community and the Figma community. Just head over there and just grab them. They're completely free to use. Do what you want with them. I made them for you. So just head over. I'll drop the link in the description. So just head over and slap them in. So just give you an idea what a texture is. I've made a rectangle because that's what we do as designers, rectangle, circles and other shapes. And we have a background color. And then top of that, we've add an image. And this is set to tile. And this is around about, generally when they come in, they're 100%. That's just generally what they look like. And you can reduce the percentage depending on how narrow and how wide apart you want on the texture. But that's it. But you know what I mean? That's simple as that. We have some, just use a pen tool. We've made a gradient line. So this is a pen tool, just a straight line. The layer has been set to plus lighter. I use plus lighter a lot in this design and some designs. And this has a radial gradient attached to it. I don't know why that's there, but it has a radial gradient attached to it. So it just like, well, it should be a little bit further. So it just fades out. So it's just like a light, just light accent. Again, this is just a pen tool, made a shape. I've pulled in the border radius to about 6. And I've used a gradient on that as well. That is generally what we'll be using throughout this. So I did some prep work before, come up with a design. I've laid some assets out. I've got a hex key here. I've just got a circle. I've got a star. How do I do a hex key? Right, let's just quickly nail that down. It is a star. Let's move in there. It's a star. I've increased the points, and I've also increased the inner shape, the inner radius, just to make a flower star thing. And I've added a bit of border radius on that. And that's how you make a hex looking screw. The rule of thumb, if you're placing a shape down and it's the first shape to be on the surface, the drop shadow is the drop shadow, and the inner shadow here is the highlight color. If I put in a shape, if I put on a shape on top of that shape, the drop shadow is now the highlight color, as you see here, the highlight color, and the inner shadow is the depth of how, the perceived depth of how far that goes in that shape. So just rule of thumb, that's what we use, that's what I use, not what we use. Every designer does it differently. Some designers do it better than me. We've taken that, we've applied a noise texture to that. Noise texture, when I talk about noise texture in here, I use a plugin, Figma plugin, which is a free plugin, which is called Noise and Texture, done by an amazing guy, very talented guy. It has noise, it has an array of different effects that we will use in this design. Generally, you just click add random static. When it gets applied as a new layer over here, and I reduce, it comes automatically tiled, and I just reduce that, it comes in at 100. So you can leave it at the default size over here, which is, I think it's probably a little bit more than that, probably around about like that, I think. When it comes in, all you need to do, all I do, is just reduce that down to something that looks a little bit more metally. Yeah, so you just play around with that, and you can also reduce the opacity of that image as well. There you go. So noise is done by Noise and Texture plugin. Definitely go and use it. It's the only plugin I generally use. And these patterns are custom made patterns which you can get for free on my Figma Store. So that is the base rock of everything that we're doing. So we've prepped a bit. One last thing, let's talk about this. What is this? I wanted the feel of having a vent. Just an aesthetic look of something breathing. So this is just a bunch of circles at different sizes. I think like that's, what size is that? That's 30, then that's like 25, and that's 20, and that's 15, and 10, and 5, and what, no, God knows what that is, 2.5, you get the idea. So I've taken this, I've duplicated this, I've turned this around, right? Even this is auto layout. I've deleted that layer. I've put that layer on top. Yeah? And I've done the same. I've taken these three. I've moved this, but I've deleted one, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth. Then I looked at it and went, that's nice, but maybe the shape that I've probably put in it will be a bit of an angle, like that. It won't be perfectly 90 degrees. It'll be like some random angle. So how did I do that? I just ungrouped, I've auto layouted them all, so ungrouped them all. So we had loads of dots that were in a group everywhere, loads of circles that were everywhere. I selected everything by holding shift, and I've aligned that to the top up here, aligned to the top. I've gone round and I've kept my finger on, I'm on a Mac, so I keep my finger on command, and shift, and I click all of the others, and I've aligned that to the right, which is up here. And I've done the same, hit command, hit shift, and then click the rest of the layers, and I've aligned them to the top, and then shift, click, align them to the right. So you end up having this kind of skewed perspective shape thing going on. So that's how I've done that. I will shout out the keyboard shortcuts that I do use. That's how I do it. So in principle, when you have a layer, I'll show you in, here we go. If you have a layer here, and you go, oh, I need to get to that dot, you can just double click in it, and then, do you know what I mean? You can go, yeah, that's the dot that I have. Here's the group. Oh, I need that shape. I need to double click again to get in it. If you hold down Command and hover, you can target the layer you want straight away. Yeah, you don't need to think about it. You just go, oh, I want that one, I want that one, I want that one, I want that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. While holding Command and Shift at the same time. Do a lot of that. Right, let's get on with the CyberBlade. We've drawn a rectangle. It has a background. There's a gradient background. That's all it is. That's as simple as that. This is a rectangle, amazingly, which has a pattern, free texture pack on Figma. That's added in. So here we are. Here's the color. Here's the image, which is tiled 100%, 100%. That's it. It also has a top border, a top inner shadow, right at the top there. You see that? That's that. Has a shadow on it, as you can see. We're winning. Right. I'm going to show you now what the foundation of doing mecha plates are. There's a bunch of different ways you can do this, but I'm going to explain this. So let's take a square. Here's an amazing square. Let's take another shape. Here is another amazing square. Let's make this purple. Right? Here's two shapes. I want to cut this shape out of this. I'll put this shape wherever I want it. Let's Shift while still holding Shift. Select the other one. Select them both together. Align those in the middle. As they're both selected over here, we're going to go over to a Boolean tool. Is it a Boolean tool? Boolean group. So we're going to go to subtract selection. So your base shape is white. The one that you're going to cut away is the purple one. So let's do that. Done. Simple. Amazing. If you select both of them with just one mouse click, you move them around. If you keep your finger on Alt, you can select what's in that folder. So I can take that, and that still cuts away. So I can move that no matter where I want it. Yeah, I can move it there, and then I could just put a circle behind it, and you can make that red, and then just send that back. And look, it's cut out. It's amazing. Technology's mind-boggling. There we go. So we'll just put that back there a second. Keeping your finger on Command and selecting, and then Shift, and then Alt. You can drag it down, and it snaps. Yeah, because horizontally, vertically. You can move that to there. So we've made a H. We're amazing. We're doing great. What I want you to look up over here is we've got a layer which is called subtract, because that's what it is. We've taken two shapes and we subtracted it from the main shape, which is at the bottom. Here's the main shape, and then we're going to do cut one, cut two. I sound like I'm telling you like the most basic thing, but trust me, a lot of people ask me this, so I thought I'd get this out of the way. Right, there we go. Simples, shape. How do I add to that? Let's take the pen tool, because I use that a lot. Let's create some lines. Let's make it red so we can see what we're doing. And let's give it some rounded corners. Right, I'm going to hold Option, Shift, and I'm going to pull this over here. I'm going to select Shift, click on one, Shift, click on the other one. Then I'm going to hold down Option, Shift. I'm going to click, hold Option, click, then press Shift, and then pull down to do snap horizontally. Yeah, that's amazing. We've got a shape here. So I want to add this to our amazing H. So let's select them all. Yeah, so they're all selected here. And there's our subtract folder just there. I'm going to press Alt. And I'm going to click the subtract. And go over to Boolean. Then I'm going to go uniform selection. And change the color of that because it looks garish. So now that we've added, look in the folder, here are our red lines, which are now added into the subtracted H before that. Yeah, so here we are, union. This is what unifies this together. And then this folder cuts, but the last folder is your base. So, because it's the base, you can do what you want with it. You can go, oh, well, I need it a bit like this, or I want this to be a bit like this, and actually I want this to, I want in the subtract folder, I want to Control C, Control V, oh, no, sorry, and press Control D. I want to duplicate them and then turn them around, and I want something like that. Holding Command, you can target them. Yeah, without drilling down and going, oh, I want that one, I want that one, I want that one, right? So now that is all theoretically uniformed, but it's not. It's still 100% editable. So the more you do this and do very detailed work, you'll find that the system will struggle a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit. It's just trying to keep up with what's happening. So make your shape, whatever shape you're making. Then once you're happy with that shape, we'll flatten it. But we'll just do some tweaking to this first before we do that. So I'm happy with that shape. What I'm going to do is, I know I'm definitely going to use that shape. It's definitely what I'm thinking. I've highlighted the whole of everything. I've right click on the shape and I've pressed Command E, which is flatten, and now that has flattened that into one thing. As you can see, if I double click it, or if I hit enter, it goes into point mode, if that's the correct term. So you're no longer able to edit this. You can't move this stroke any further. So it's turned into a shape. So press escape. Now that I have that shape, I want to add some border radius to it, and that's the border radius I'm adding to it. So now you can see it's a plate. So that is what I do. I map out, I cut out shapes, I add shapes to it. Once I'm happy, I flatten it, just because it helps, because this gets very detailed, and I'll show you why it gets very, very detailed. But we're going to create a shape, we're going to cut into it, we're going to add some spikes, we're going to put a color on it, we're going to put either some noise texture on it, we're going to put on some diagonal lines on it, we're going to do some, add a drop shadow, put an inner shadow. That's all we're doing. We're just repeating that all the time. There's another layer of complexity on that, which is very easy as well. I have a squeaky chair. So that's that, right? We got that? If not, just rewind it, go back through it, and you'll get into it. So here is our shape. This is our base shape. So now, as you can see on the screen, we've got a hexagon, which is outlined in blue. This is turned off at the moment, but this is the shape that I'm going to cut into the base shape. If I turn that on, there we go. I've cut into it. And I do that again, 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 again. So I've cut in 6 hexagons and a rectangle with a border, 100% border radius. I've kept this editable as a base shape because I want to be able to, if the design just accidentally expands for some reason, or I overshoot the design, I want the ability to increase that area. I want the ability to, like, going, okay, I need a little bit more width over here. I need to hold in command. I need to push this a bit further over there. You know what I mean? I can just nudge it over. So that's that. So what you just learned, this is everything. So that's the base plate. These are all layers, obviously. I don't label all layers, and there's thousands of them in this design. So it might slow down just a little bit. It does speed up, but it has to load all the textures and the drop shadows and everything. But generally, this design doesn't slow down Figma whatsoever. So that's the base of everything. So making a shape, cutting it in and out, job's done. There's the base. So we're gonna add, I wanted to add something else behind it. So I just created a rectangle, I'll put it behind it with a drop shadow. Job's done. Right? Let's lock that. Now, as I'm going to turn on layers, it might chug just a little bit. That's no reflection of Figma's capability. It's just that there's a lot of textures probably to load in. So give it a little second here and there. Right, we're going to do the clamps. The clamps are on either side, the metal clamps. So let's turn that on. You go, Mark, but this looks completely different. It isn't completely different. Let's just turn off the things that are distracting. It's just a shape. They are 3 shapes that have been put together to create this. Yeah, so let me just get out my pen tool. Just a second. This was a shape, right? Forgive me. This was another shape. This was another shape. Oh, press the wrong button. Pen. This was another shape. Yeah. And I've merged those together to make the base shape. And then these holes, these notches in here, are the ones that I wanted to subtract from that shape, to punch a hole through it. So that's all it is. So you just play around with how you think a plate might look. These are kind of plates that have been punched out by a bit of machinery. So they can be quite clean, but they also can be quite rough as well. So I'm just trying to replicate that kind of look. So you just play around with it and go with what you think feels good, or, you know, check out a reference and just to see mech and plates. You know, it's a thing that you kind of, it's a thing I've learned. But yeah, so that's it. That's the basis of that. Right, masking. Masking, I do a lot of masking in this. The reason why I'm using masking is to do the worn edges of the metal. And how that's done is very, very simple. So let's just take a look at this. Do you see this? This is just randomly, without thought, using the pen tool and going around and making something weird. So I'll show you that now, just so you might know it, you might not know it. I'd rather show you let's choose a dark color, right? Here we have a shape, right? I'm going to Command D to duplicate it, so now I have two. I'm going to take the pen tool and I'm just going to just happily just clicking around, just doing some stuff, and then I'm going to link it up. Let's take away the stroke. There we go. So that's what I want. Whatever's on top is what's going to be clipped. So I'm going to shift, I'm going to select what I want, and shift, select the shape that I want to mask into, and then click mask, and that's it. It's as simple as that. I'll change the color, select the color of it, maybe make it a bit darker. There you go. Edging, done, in a nutshell, right? Simple. The mask always sits on top of the original. Want to do it again? We have a random shape. We have two shapes here. I'll darken this one down and I lighten this one up a bit. Here we are, two shapes, identical, duplicated. I went around with the pen tool around the edge. I've selected the one, command click that one, the one on the white one, and then shift click the shape that I want to use as the mask. And then I've gone over here and I've used mask. Done. Everyone's a winner. If I move this, you can see it's still a square because it's still using that shape. Yeah, so that's that. I've used that in this. That's why that looks funky. You're probably thinking, hey, but that's just like one shape and that's really weird. Again, if you do a shape in Figma and then while it's still highlighting the points like you're seeing now on the screen, you see these points still highlighted, you can still click and do stuff. Yeah. And if I press escape, that is one shape, one shape. I take it from stroke to fill, there you go, it's one shape. If I double click on it, it's one shape. I can move it around, I can move the bits and bobs around, but I can't really, I'd have to select every single point on here and then I could move it afterwards. Yeah, so that's one shape. If you make a shape, pen tool, P for pencil, you make a shape, don't press escape, you've done that, you've committed to that shape. You're committed, no going back. And then press pen tool again, I'm going to do this. Make sure it's done up, press escape, I've committed. These are now separate shapes. Separate shapes, you can colour them whatever you want. Yeah, they're separate shapes. Two layers, two separate shapes. Here, when I was using the pen tool, I didn't press escape. I just carried on using it. It was just quicker. Yeah. Base plate. Command D to duplicate it. But I want you to know this. This base plate has a linear gradient and has a bunch of effects on it. When you Command D to duplicate that, it will also duplicate the effects and the gradient or the image, the textures that you've got in it. The trick is to remove all of those apart from the fill color. Just change it to white. Change it to black, cannot be transparent. If it's transparent, you won't be able to see what you're trying to clip. It has to have a fill color. So if your base shape has a load of drop shadows or images or gradients, duplicate it, but then remove all the styles apart from a fill color and just pick a solid fill color, white or black, pink, green, whatever color you want, but not transparent. If you make it transparent and you try and use that as a mask, whatever you cut into that shape to mask, you won't be able to see it. So it has to have a fill color. It's as simple as that. So I'll just delete that. Again, this has a load of drop shadows. It has an inner shadow. It has an inner shadow to collect, to have a highlight to show that it has some kind of thickness to it, because the light is coming from above, it's hitting down, the drop shadow is going in the same direction. We're winning. I've taken this, move this here, and I duplicated it, and I've moved it over there. Let's just put our mask back on. I've duplicated it, but in the mask over this side, I've just altered the shape of the mask just a little bit, just to give it a little bit of variety. We have some hex screws we've added. Hex screws on that bracket. We'll put these hex screws back. Hex screws, there we are. We're quite a few groups away till we get to the end of this, but it's starting to come along straight away. It's very simple. We've got our hex keys in here, our hex keys, which we've designed over here. Here's our hex keys. I've just copied them and I've just pasted them in, because this is kind of like, you can move this plate in and out and you can tighten it, you know, it's thinking like that maybe. Right, chips, microchips. My past videos go through all this. We did a motherboard, it was plastered to high hell and back with chips. We're not going that far this time. We have taken our chips from here. We have taken these chips and we have put them in a group and I put them there. Job's done. Yeah, different heights, different chips, randomly placed without thinking about it. I wasn't trying to be perfect with it. It's just chucking them on and just thinking, like, you look at the circuit board, it's not really like, yeah, some of it's quite tidy, but then there's bits everywhere. So it just follows that, and you know, I think it works better that way. It's just on there. They're there. You don't know what they do. They do something, but they're there. Hexagon background. Hexagon background. The hexagon background is just a background of where the CyberBlade futuristic cyborg thing is gonna sit on. So I wanted it to be front and center of it. So let's have a look at this hex background. Here we have, let me just turn off these so you don't get confused. It's just a hexagon. Again, created a hexagon and I've added and cut into that hexagon to make this shape. This shape has a inner shadow because it's on something. The inner shadow adds a bit of depth to it, and the drop shadow is giving the light at the bottom that you see here. The light is coming from the top, so we're using the drop shadow as a light source, not as a shadow. Inner shadow because it's on top. Right, move on. We're going to go for left clamp, exactly how we've done this clamp here. How we've designed this and how we've added and cutted out shapes and how we've masked, this is identical. This is no wizardry, it's identical. On the left clamp, we have made a shape. We've added some prongs and some cut-ins. We've used the same shape and we've masked that. We've gone around that. We've made some worn edges of that metal. We've taken our hex keys, that hex screws, and we've added that on there. These are just a pen tool gone mad. I'm going to click here, click here, click here, click there to make some scratches because I just wanted the metal to be a little bit worn. Right, let's zoom out. I've duplicated this, I flipped this horizontally, and here we have the other side of it. It's identical. Identical process. This is identical. The back plate is identical. Cut in and add, that's all it does. I'm speeding along. Cable holes. Let's zoom into this. Cable holes. You're thinking, it's complex shape. It's not. It's not complex shape. Let's break it down. This is a circle with some squares on top and at the bottom. That's all it is. And we've unified them together to make this shape and added the border radius so it looks like this. These rivets are from our board. Here are some rivets. Here are some rivets. We've copied those and we pasted them in. We want them to be anchored to the back plate. How that's done, whether it's a hex screw or whether they're rivets, it's fine. This is just a circle that's black. This is another circle behind the black circle with a gradient, which makes it look like, there's some thickness to that. This black shape has a drop shadow catching the light. The drop shadow is blur is 0, the Y is 1, and it's got a color on there and it's about 56%, 46%. This black is another black circle which also has a drop shadow, which is always blur 0. It has a Y of 1. It is a color and 100%. It is a color because this is picking up the light from this. You could technically argue that there should be a light rim all the way around, but it didn't feel right for some reason. Right, ring light. Let's just turn each one of these off. The ring is made up of a shape, is a circle. It's a circle. Let's just turn these off so you can see. This is the ring light. It's a circle. You can make a donut out of it. Let's close it. Ring light. So it's a ring light. It's a ring. It's just a donut. I've duplicated it. Oh, sorry. This has a one fill of a radial, which has a blue color to 100 to 0% opacity. The layer underneath that has a fill as a radial blur of blue to a dark purple. The layer on top has a 0% opacity, so I didn't want it to override. So if I went, this is red, it overrides the layer underneath. So let's just put it back to purple and let's put it back to 0. So the wrong way around. Let's choose the red, let's choose it to be dark, and then let's just put it down to 1%. Yeah? As I've duplicated this layer, I've put a blur on this just to give it that little hazy look. I've then duplicated it again. This layer is plus lighter. We only use this layer style to give off that light glow. It brings out the color a little bit more. This also has a blur layer added onto it, which is roughly around about 17.3. Again, duplicated the donuts LED circle. We've created a fill just on one corner, which is a little bit more blue, 0% opacity, radial, just to try and bring out that look like an element of an LED in that donut. And then we've duplicated it again, and then we've got a plus lighter again, and then we've got a bluish down here and a layer blur, so it kind of like it's lifting that light just a little bit more. Right, that's cable holes. Right, we're going to add, we copied that, we've pasted that cable over there. The only difference is that in the donut circles, I've selected all of them and I've just turned them round. Yeah, you can see turning around. Just turn them around just to give a little bit of variation. That is all. Let's lock those so we don't delete everything. Cables. A lot of people have been asking about this. Line backups. Right. Cable. This is a cable. This is the pen tool, and I've made a wavy line. As you can see, it's a pen tool. As you can see, it's a pen tool. I've made a wavy line. That's all I've done. I've matched it up with an end cap to match it up with the circumference of the hole around here. A little bit off. Argument's sake, go that way. That's all that is. I've also done the same for that. I've swooped it down. That's as far as advanced as it goes. I've kept this in a layer. I've kept this in a layer as a backup. The reason why I do that is just in case that I don't like the way the cable is turning out. I can just delete it and then go back to my original outline stroke and just go, no, I want it to be a bit more like this instead, which is very unlikely. So I just group them together and I call it a backup. To make the cable, we're going to select it, we're going to right click, we're going to outline stroke. So now the stroke is outlined, it is no longer editable. It is, if you hit enter, you can see the points of what the stroke are, so you can edit it if you want, but you will deform it, trust me, right? So let's just undo that for a second. So pretend that we've outlined the stroke. Okay, so this is the outline stroke. This has some inner shadows added to it. It has a background color and it has a texture added to it to replicate a cable look. You could make it a proper cable, but it would take you a longer time to do it. We'll do that another day. So we've made a stroke with a pencil. We've kept a backup just in case we don't like the way the cable is moving, or the artwork has adjusted later on and you need to move the cable to where its destination, so you can go, okay, I've got my styling, I'm going to copy my styling, I'm going to go back to my original backup, adjust, outline stroke, apply your styles. How do I do this cable? Let's just turn off all the layers. it has a grey background color. It has a image tile on it at 100%. Again, texture pack on my Figma store, completely free. Use it. I've added an inner shadow because the light is coming from the top. Yeah, you can take those values down if you want. I've added another inner shadow, which is black, to dull that color down. Effects are a bit odd, so you have to work a little bit more methodically and going, this is my base, this is my next, this is my next, and the top one is your final one, because you can't reverse that. So then add another inner shadow on that, and on this you can see I've just added more of an inner shadow that goes along, just to give that ambient occlusion lighting that's hitting underneath, because it's not always going to be dark, it's going to be some light reflecting off that. And then I've added another inner shadow on that, which is just a little bit darker, but you can see there's still a little bit of lighting along there. So that is how I've done the cable. I have copied this exact style by hitting Option, Command and C, and I've clicked on the expanded shape, the brand new shape that has nothing at all, and I've hit Option, Command and V, and I've pasted that in there so it's identical. No ifs, no buts, identical. As simple as that. Those are pipes. Right. We've done a lot so far. We've made some shapes, we've added them to it, we've cut some holes out of it, we've made some screws, we've added some textures, we've added some gradients, we've made some cables, we've put some inner shadows in. This is what it's looking like so far. So if you've come this far, well done. Let's talk about shadows as well. Shadows on a cable, because they come out of something and they can go close to something. So the shadows, something like that. So the shadows are a duplication of the backup line that you had before. Remember our backup lines here? So we've changed the curvature of that, and we've sent that back behind the top layer, and on that we've added a linear gradient, and it goes black to transparent, and it's coming from this direction. So you can see it's black to transparent, and the same but in another layer which is black to transparent. So as you can see, it gives it that the light is casting underneath the cable. And then we've done the same for the other side as well. You can see it's nearer, so you can see there's a gradient shadow that way, and then it's closer but it's lifting off there, so you can see that there. That's how you do shadows. Very, very, very straightforward. So we're going to, we've only got quite a few more layers to go, but they're very, very simple. So we're going to start with the top of the head first. We're going to start with the top of the plates, the plate work, the mecha plate work. So top helmet part, let's just turn this off so nobody gets panicked. So let's turn on the base plate. We don't want that, don't want that, don't want that, don't want that. There we are. Here is a plate. We've made a shape. We've added a drop shadow to it. We've added an inner shadow, which is the top at the top up here. We've added an inner shadow at the top. We've added a radial gradient to give it that like dome effect to it. We've added a noise and texture to it to give it a bit of a metal look. Remember, that's in the plugins. That is called noise and texture. And then just add the noise to the layer, then just change the tile effect to what works best for you and your image. So that's the plate. We've cut some textures in there. Jobs are good. And top marks. The top marks are the same process. We've duplicated the back plate and we've turned that into a mask. Some edge shapes, and we've made some strokes. Sorry, we've got some scratch marks here, pencil randomly, twisted them round, everything. This is the masking, as you see, the worn edges here. We've put a little worn edge there. I'll show you in a second what that's for. So that's that. We've added the vent that we got from our elements, which is our vent here. We've pasted, I've pasted that in. I've added a drop shadow to catch the highlight, and I've set it to a dark color. So that is the right hand side of the head. You've come a long way. You've come such a long way. I've duplicated that and I've flipped that horizontally and I've pasted it there. So now we have left and right plate. There is, again, I always try and make just a little fine tuning adjustment so they're not identical. So as you can see, here and here there's some difference, here and here some difference, here and here there's some difference, but these markings are generally the same. The scratch marks are a little bit different, so just keep that in mind. Rivets. We know what rivets are. Rivets, we've taken elements. Here are our rivets. We've taken our rivets and we've pasted them in, randomly pasted them in. There we are, put them there. I think put 3 there, put 1 there, put 1 there, put 1 there. Just rivets, the circles, that's all they are. We've got some, we put some marks on there. The marks are set to, let me just make sure that that isn't locked. The marks are just a triangle set to overlay, white, so it picks up the color underneath. So yeah, we've got some labels there, we've got Figma branding there. Yeah, they're all there. They're just marks. We've got the center part, which is now down the middle. We have done exactly the same. We've made a shape, we've cut some into some shapes, we've put some scratch marks on, we've got a gradient on there. We have like a lighter gradient. We've got some inner shadow, quite a few drop shadows just to give it some depth because it's on top. We've added some rivets into that as well. You can see the texture there. It's just a noise texture. Again, this is just the masked area to go around to give you that worn metal effect. Again, we've got some lines in there, some scratch marks in there, and that's that. We've also got a CyberBlade text on there. So I just picked a font, typed in CyberBlade, converted that to outline, then merged those different shapes. So I've flattened that to be one vector shape. I have then masked that. As you can see, here is a circle. The reason why I'm using a circle as a mask, because I want it to be brighter in the middle and fade out towards the end. So that is that. Right. So we've done the top part of the helmet. That's how easy it is. Right, we do the front. Let's unlock this. The front is a base shape. Again, it's the shape that we make, that we cut into or add to make this shape. We've cut in, we've made some holes here, made some holes here. Is that like Bridget nose? Is those his nostrils? Or, you know, in a metal way, weird. And then that is masked again, and then we've gone round and we've added the worn texture effect. So that is the front. Let's do we'll turn on some hex screws. We added some hex screws. We added a shape. We added a rectangle with a border radius into where this worn out part was. We've added some big screws with some washers, some small ones, medium ones, some small ones. Added some there, and there, and there. Add some more at the bottom, which I'll show in a minute. So that's standard. That's what we've done before. Right, so these are the eyes. So we have, again, a base shape. This is a solid color. This has a stroke color to it. It is a radial color, as you can see. It goes from light to dark. It's only affecting this because it is a stroke that goes all the way around it. We've duplicated that. We've set that to plus light. We've changed it to a blue instead of a purple to make it pop a little bit more. But when you do something with plus light on a layer, you can change the color of what it's on top of to change the effect, to make it brighter, to make it however you want. Here is the base, which is just a stroke, again with a gradient. The gradient is a purple to 0% opacity purple, nothing special on either side. Group those together. I duplicated them and I just moved them. I moved them up a bit more. Like I moved it from there to there a bit more. That's that. I duplicated both of them. I added a plus light on them and I did a blur of 22.6 just to give it like that kind of glow effect. I duplicated that same layer and I went in and I changed it again on plus lighter layer. I changed it from the blue to a purple gradient, which made it like it stand out a bit more here. It's made it stand out a bit more here, and kept that kind of blue purpley look to it. And then on top of that, I did a texture on top of that, and I just dulled it down just a little bit. There's always that ability to go a little bit too far. How did I do that? I've taken the base shape and I put a rectangle over the half of it and I cut it away. So it ended up, and I split it into two parts. As you can see, you got one side, you got two sides. So one side, I've put the angle going from bottom left to top right, and the other side I've done exactly the same, but I flipped it from bottom right to top left, and I've grouped those together, and then on the group itself I've changed it to overlay at 50%. which is here, 50%. You can push up a bit more if you want, and it gets darker, right? So I left it about 50%, 50% kind of worked. Like even what we've done so far is quite good. Left side, this is just the section which is just on the side, as if you've got like your bone structure on the side of your eye. It's just a shape and another shape that has a linear gradient that goes from dark to light, that also has a texture on it as well. This is another shape which is just a dark to light. I've duplicated that layer. I turned it into a mask, and in that shape layer, as applied to a mask, I just made another shape, and I put a purpley colour in, about 50%, and a blur as well, just to give it that kind of like key light effect, like it's happening. I've duplicated that and I've stuck that the other side. Right eye flashing. I've come up with some weird names. Again, this is exactly the same process, right? This is nothing special. This is a weird shape I made. It's not like an eyelash or anything. I just thought something is like a corner of you, like you can see out like the cheek, top part of your cheek. I thought maybe that's it. It's a shape, right? And it's a shape. I've duplicated that shape, and I've done the same process of masking, going around with the pen tool, and changing the color of it to give that worn edge look, worn edge metal look. Duplicated that, and I've put it on the other side. Yeah, we're getting somewhere. Lower jaw, again, same process. We have a shape. We've made a shape, we've added and we've cut out some things to it, some cutouts to it. We've added some rivets. We've duplicated the base layer, and we've added some worn edge effect in the mask that we talked about before. So that's that. We've also copied some of the markings that we've got from here down to here for consistency, because that's the theme. We've also copied the vent. So I've duplicated the vent that we have up here, but on the second duplication I removed, as I'm holding command, I've removed one set from it and just pushed it a bit closer. I've put some scratch marks on it. It's got a little bit more of a noise added to it. There's a bit more roughness, like it's been more used. Those are all dots. I've duplicated this and I've put this onto the other side. Right, left vent, right? Again, rinse and repeat. We've added our rivets in. We've made a shape. We've added some prongs to it. We've cut in. Yeah, we are using to get this kind of like army kind of, I wouldn't say army, but this look. We've used our noise and texture plugin, and the noise and what you use is a metal balls, and you kind of like change, like you can see like the kind of texture you want. Once you're happy with the texture you want, and it comes in as a layer, as you can see here, you can increase and decrease the size of those, whatever size you want. It's completely up to you. I've changed that layer opacity to overlay because I wanted it to pick up the actual gradient. Now this is just a flat image, so why does it look like it's a little bit bent? It's just as simple as, like, I've gone from dark to light. You'll see that these two points are quite close together. Then I've suddenly changed it from a little bit darker to a lot more darker. So you can see it get that gradient, using that double extra point in there makes it visually look like I bent it, but I haven't. It's just one thing. This is just a rectangle with a a rounded corner, what we do all day. Another rectangle with some border radius. Rounded corner, border radius. Started off as this shape. I got a square and I cut it out, so I ended up with this particular shape. Has a gradient on it. As you can see, I've kind of got like an edgy grey. I've kind of changed the steps from that, just trying to be a little bit meticulous, probably a bit too much over with it. Again, I've taken the exactly the same elements from everywhere else, which still is an overlay layer style. I've taken these styles. I've used the same principle of using a mask to add some roughened up edges. On the back, I've used a gradient over a radial gradient to try and pick up that kind of like canister feel. This would be, you might find this interesting actually. This, how do I do this? This is just, right, it's so simple, you think like, oh my god, why did I think of that? It's just a stroke, right, with 27 thickness. I've put a linear gradient on it from light to dark, and on that I've just put a layer blur, and that's that. I've copied the same thing for down there as well. Turn off the layer blur there. I've done the same thing there and put a blur on it. Done. These are both set to plus light. So remember, the lighting that I do is generally always plus light, unless it calls for something completely different. So that's how I did that. Like, that's how you did that. Like, it looks complex, but it's not that complex. I've duplicated it and I put it on the other side. Job's done. So the jaw is, oh my god, it's even more complex. It isn't. It's just a shape. Again, we've added some stuff to it. We've cut some stuff out of it using the Boolean tool. We've taken the same rivets that we've got somewhere else. We've used hex screws that we've used everywhere else. We've also used our markings down here. We've also used our triangle markings down here just to keep the consistency, and this kind of like graphic, we've used that as well. This background texture that you're seeing is just a this is, what is this? This is a marble effect. So I've fine tweaked it just a little bit just to give it the effect that I wanted. I have, the image is here, and I've, not that image, the image is here, and I've kind of just changed it to overlay because I want it to pick up the base gradient color. This shape has a lot of effects added to it, as in, like, all it is it's an inner shadow and a load of drops. I don't know why it's, oh yeah, it's got like an inner shadow at the top, and then it's got drop shadows all at the bottom. It's got a bit of noise here. It's got a radial gradient here. It's got a bit of noise added from our same process. It's got a linear gradient that goes from black to transparent. This is just because I wanted just to darken it down just a little bit. If I turn it off, it looks like a little bit flat. Turn it back on. 4 hours later. Yeah, it looks adds a bit better. So that's that. And I've duplicated it and I've turned it and I've flipped it onto the other side. Right? So that's that. We've got, what is this? Left pipe housing. So right, the pipe housing, this is exactly the same process. We've taken a shape, we've cut something in, kind of used a pen tool and just pushed and pulled for about 2 hours until we found out the shape that I wanted. I've added in the arrows, I've added some scratches, we've duplicated the base shape, we've turned that into a mask and put some worn edges. We've put another shape underneath that. I think we haven't cut anything into it, I just moved some points inwards and then just added some border radius. So put this texture in there. Again, we're using our hexagonal screws. We've put on our rivets. We've got a drop shadow on there. As you can see, we've got an inner shadow for no particular reason at all because it's under something. We've got a linear gradient happening here. We're going from dark to light. We've got some noise texture added on, which is this layer. We've got another layer, which is black to transparent, just to fix that darkness. If I turn it off, it doesn't really do much. If I turn it back on, there you go. So it's very subtle, but it's there. Then we've got another shape underneath that. It's got an inner shadow for no particular reason at all, because there's nothing catching the light. You could argue to remove it. We've got a gradient on there to give it that kind of like light to dark. We've got an image on there which is a noise. We're using our noise and texture plugin, and we are using, what are we using? We're using value, and I've moved that down to about 4. I just wanted to give it that kind of like a bit like completely different texture. This is also set to overlay. This is automatic on tile, and that's 20%. I've added another dark black to transparent linear gradient on there just to correct it just a little bit. And then, yeah, so that is that, and duplicated it and put some weird edges. This, if I can get it, is just a rectangle with a border radius. I duplicated it and turned that into a mask and put some worn edges on there. And I duplicated it, and now it's on the other side. That's all it takes, is just to like make a plate, cut into it, add some stuff to it, turn it into something, work with it, fail a million times until you get to this particular part. We've got some details in here. We've got some marks. Yeah, so these marks are around the edges around here. So if you can just see, now this is just the finalizing parts. We've got a mark there. We've put one here. We've put one here. Do you know what I mean? As you can see, we've put one here as well. Put one down below. We have I've put details. I always put details on the top. We've added some text, which is just a name, which is just set to screen. We've added a serial number. We've added one that I always do is Mark Penny as design loo. We've added another one somewhere, another random serial number here. Nothing spectacular because it's text. We've got some arrows. Let's turn that on. The arrows are just these here, these additional textures. So this these three, added them there, and we've added them to the top as well. Oh, and either end. So we've added that one there, we've added one there, we've added one there, we've added one there. So that's our scratches. Added one there, added some more over here. Nothing big, added some more scratches. Why have I got them in different? Right, these are all scratches. Yeah, here we are. Some more scratches here, here. Some additional ones there. Yeah, already picked that one out. Yeah, but some scratches. They're just there. Just scratches. Nothing special. We're on to lighting now. So we're missing something here. So this. It's just a donut. This is identical to this. I've copied this and all of its layer styles and its plus lighter layer styles. So that is identical. This is just a donut where it has a stroke effect added to it, but there are different added stroke effects just to give it different what we talked about earlier, different energy, different, like picking out little LEDs that's in there, specular lighting, all that jargon. So here we are, getting really close to finishing this piece within what 3 hours. So lighting is my favorite part. I always put it on the top because I want it to affect the layers that are obviously below it. These are either strokes or circles, squares. They either have a gradient applied to them or a radial gradient, and they are or have a layer style set to pin light because it's a bit more powerful than overlay. I think pin light in Figma is a win. So without further ado, let's turn on that layer, that group. There we go, in your face, done. So let's just have a look around. Let's just zoom out a bit. So for example, we've got two huge oval shapes here. We've got them on a gradient from blue to a dark purple. It doesn't make a difference. It's set to 0% opacity. At 70%, it's plus light. If I turn that off, do you know what I mean? It's made a subtle difference, but it's actually lighting like the actual panel. You know what I mean? It's lighting the layers below that as well. This is the same for this. This is like a massive thing, but it's not that big. But again, it's on a pin light. We've got a blue set to transparency. So what you see, this cable lighting that everybody's been going on about, like, all it is, it's a circle with a radial gradient on it, and that's set to pin light. This is another circle set to pin light with a radial gradient on it. It's got a bit of a blur on it because I didn't want to show the edges. Sometimes you get like an edge when you do a radial blur, like where it stops. I didn't want that. I just wanted it to spread it out a bit. Here's a trick. This is like when people say, how do you do that? I showed you this earlier. Let me turn this off. This is just pin light, radial color, purple to 0% opacity, one stroke, give it a width of 14. It's on pin light and I set it to blur, and that's how it picked it up for that. And I did exactly the same for this here. Like, turn the blur off, it's the same thing. Turn the blur on, there you go. That's why I keep everything at the top, all the lighting at the top, because it affects everything else underneath. So even if you've got 100 layer at the, 100 layers below, sorry, and then you've got number one at the top, that will still affect the one that's down there with the pin light. So I've gone round and I've used the same, exactly the same thing. I've used a stroke, I've used a radial gradient on there, set that to 9, and I've just turned that into some kind of key light, which is like bouncing off here. I have some circles. These circles have a stroke. They have 2 strokes set on one circle. It is a color, it is whatever color. So in this, it's a purple and it's set to 0% opacity. And I've duplicated that layer and I've moved it to the other side to have that, to pick up that light onto there. So it kind of, it bounced off back to it, but it's less powerful. So I've gone through the whole of the document and I've added a rim light on it, which is, again, it's a circle, has a stroke with a radial gradient from 100% to 0%, and I've adjusted the size of that to give me that. That's on layer pin light. So as you can see, I've kind of gone round everywhere possible. I think there are loads of other places that should have lighting, but you could go on for days. So there's some here, as you can see. There's some brighter spots here. How I got them brighter, I've just got one circle, exactly the same, with a stroke, with a gradient, 2 gradients on it, from 100% to 0%. I've duplicated that to make it more powerful, to make it more brighter, because we're closer to a lighter source. We've got little edge lighting around here. We've done it all the way along around here, because this is like kind of like the main place. We've done exactly the same here, edge lighting here. We've done some just here, just to pick off light around there. Got some here. We've got a little bit here. We've got probably some somewhere. Yeah, we've got some there as well. You could argue that that needs some, that needs some, that needs some. There's some there, there's some there. You could argue that that might be a little bit brighter underneath that. I don't know. I didn't want to go that far. But that's it. That is all that's to it, and it is done in Figma. I know a lot of people say Figma can't do that, but you can. You can easily do that in Figma, and that's how I made that. From a sketch, from an idea that I had in my head, to a sketch, to just spending 12 hours doing it. And I did fail a lot of the time, especially when it was coming to CyberBlade's head. It just wasn't working out for me, and I think I took a day away from it, a day and a half, to really think about it, how I can make it better. I'm happy how it came out, but I did it to show not the capabilities of what Figma is, but I did it to help you do something with it, like take that skill of masking a bit more. Maybe flat design's boring. Let's create some awesome things, because that's what us designers do. With that being said, I hope that you've learned something from that. If you like this approach to the video, let me know in the comments. Or if you like a 12-hour long video broken down into 4 parts, let me know of how I do it. This took a long time to do, I'm not going to lie, and a bit of frustration and a lot of things were said that I shouldn't, or I won't repeat, me being frustrated. But if you if this helps you, amazing. I'm glad. That's 18 years worth of experience. just giving you it for free. I'm not asking for anything in return. Run with it, make some amazing work. I'll be chuffed to see what you create, regardless of what it is. Art is art. So just go off and make some amazing art. And I'll catch you on the next. I'll come up with another idea, another obviously overly detailed design, more than necessary. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've rambled on enough. Let me know in the comments if it's helped you, and also let me know in the comments. Also, you'll find me on Twitter. Shout out if you need some guidance or how is that done, this done. I'm there to help you. It's free knowledge. Take it and run with it and enjoy it. Without further ado, have a great evening or morning or day, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.